So I'm going to hand over now to Ms. Ashwina Kulkarni from Immersive and Elements AI, who will be moderating the first panel. So over to you, Ashwina.
Thank you, Ricardo. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first panel discussion of AI plus Urban Heat Conference hosted by TechHive Association. I am Ashwina Kulkarni. I am director at Immersive and Elements AI and co-founder of ALERTSim. It is my pleasure to moderate today's discussion on urban planning to withstand heat waves. As we have heard throughout the opening session, cities around the world are facing increasingly complex climate-related challenges. Among these, extreme heat has emerged as one of the fastest growing risks to urban populations. Unlike many other disasters, heat does not leave behind damaged buildings or flooded streets, yet it affects millions of people every year, placing significant pressure on public health systems, infrastructure, and local economies. It disproportionately impacts those who are already most vulnerable, including children, older people, and low-income communities. As urbanization continues and the impact of climate change become more pronounced, addressing extreme heat is no longer simply an environmental challenge. It has become a challenge of how we design our cities, plan our neighborhoods, protect vulnerable populations, and integrate resilience into every stage of urban development. This also presents an important opportunity. Today, advances in artificial intelligence are changing the way cities understand, plan for, and manage heat risks. AI is helping us analyze increasingly complex climate and geospatial data, identify vulnerable communities, assess urban heat exposure, strengthen risk assessment, support evidence planning, and enable more informed and timely decision making. Over the past few years, through our work with governments, humanitarian organizations, and emergency management agencies, we have observed one consistent challenge. Cities generally have access to forecast, climate models, and risk information. The real challenge is translating that information into coordinated action and long term planning. Artificial intelligence is not the solution in itself, rather, it is an enabler, helping cities to move from reactive response towards proactive planning, preparedness, and more resilient decision making. Today's panel brings together three distinguished experts whose work spans education, city resilience, urban development, and global disaster risk reduction. We have now heard three complementary perspectives, from the role of schools in protecting our communities to building resilient cities through better planning, and finally to strengthening governance and investment for long-term heat resilience. With that, I would like to invite all three speakers back to the stage for our moderated discussion. And before that, we have a question from the audience that I would like to read. So this question is for Esteban. From your findings, what are the top data collection use cases where AI can help? This question is from Ashish.
Should I start?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I was saying, for us, it has been important to see when we were, I mean, after so many city interventions or city diagnostics, we realized that at least 50, if not 70% of our time is in data collection, right? And for this, some of the reasons that Mark mentioned, of course, the fragmentation in the databases, right? Some belong to the national government, some to the regional government, some to the local government. And then if you are starting to collect all that information, of course, you have to touch all these doors, you know? You have to knock doors and start talking to them. And not always this information is available. It happened to me in some places, for example, that the city municipality has been in opposition with the national government party, and therefore they didn't collaborate very closely, and they didn't want to pass information or data. That's an extreme case, but it's happening, right? It happens in some places. It's not uncommon, let's say. It happens as well that some municipality changes staff, a new mayor, and everybody leaves. And it happened to me in another city that they left and they even took the computers with them. So we had, very, very little to work on. But and that's why I was saying we have to arrive to a point in which we have an AI enabling these tools and supporting these tools, because they can strengthen this evidence-based planning through heat mapping, through forecasting, through scenario modeling, to providing the principles of transparency, accountability, and responsible governance. And that can only be achieved if this information is publicly available. And if AI manages to collect that information on time, and we don't have to discuss about what is the political party color between the local, regional, or national level, that will help us a lot. And that's the conscious that we have to start getting into. And I do believe that AI can support on that aspect. Because if we, instead of politicizing the topic, we use the technology and the technical part of the topic, and we discuss about technical issues, that will change. And we tried to do it at some point by having 2 focal points at the municipality. That was our entry door. We said we need one focal point, which is a political one, the mayor usually, who has to do the advocacy. And then we need another, which is the technical person, who's going to remain there no matter who's the mayor, right? And that person is the one who's pushing and pushing and pushing. And we went through 13 years in one municipality in which we had always the same focal point, which is technical. That's the key one. That's the main one. So if we can transform in a way, and I'm dreaming here as well a bit, if we can transform that technical aspect through AI and making sure that AI supports that, I'm not trying to remove that person that is the technical person, but I'm trying to support that person with AI as a helper, and also as a database for the data. And then, it doesn't really matter who's the mayor of the city, or who's the minister, or who's the president, as long as we can support citizens through that mechanism. I think that's one. And the other will be how AI enabling decision support, right? Making sure that helps track progress, that monitors, that prioritize investments, that monitors impact, because that's also a failure in most of the cities. For example, we did have a campaign that was a campaign carried out from UNDRR, right? And I was at some point the chair of the steering committee of that campaign. And we were collecting cities for that campaign. And we had many cities coming in. And at some point, we have more than 4,500 cities. But we couldn't monitor, the city that remained there and the city that left, because they changed parties. And then suddenly the city was no longer a signatory of the campaign, or we didn't know. And we didn't monitor either what was the status, the resilience status of the city at the beginning, and what was the resilience status of the same city 4 years later. So that's another form in which, if we program well AI and we don't fear AI, it could help us to monitor that progress or regress, right? Because in some cases, I think that we not always progress, but it's good to monitor that, because then you have the proof, you have the facts, and that should not be politicized again. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Esteban. To make the best use of our remaining time, I would like to focus our discussion on one important question to all the panelists. If you could recommend one investment or one planning decision that every city should prioritize today to better withstand future heat waves, what would it be and why? Juan, perhaps I could start with you. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Ashwina, and thank you, Esteban and Mark. Really interesting presentations. I took a lot from that. I hope that I can apply it in my future. So really short, if I had to choose one priority, I would say to invest in shade as a core city infrastructure combined with resilience education for families. I mean, as educators, we have our role not only to invest in education for our students, but we can also help our families. So tree canopies, shaded routes, covered play areas, but infrastructure alone is not enough. Schools can help parents and students understand heat risk, hydration, etc. And also, I mean, use AI as a great tool for preparedness and for planning is great. So I would say that, yeah, investing in shade and combining with resilience education will be my 1.5 choices.
Right. Thank you, Juan.
Thank you.
Esteban, from the perspective of urban resilience and city planning, what would be your recommendation? I think you already shared most of the points, but if you can quickly take us through it.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting because you know, extreme heat became a slow onset disaster. It's becoming a slow onset disaster, and we can see it year after year. But I mean, I've been thinking about this from the perspective of the program, and I would say that you know, applying all what I've been saying of the city systems and all that, I do think that the establishment of and I'm coming out here with something maybe crazy, but the establishment of an urban cooling network could be a good solution. I mean, you know. I do believe that citywide systems combining nature-based solutions, reflective surfaces, shading, and cool corridors, this combination of different you know, solutions for these problems could be an interesting approach for cities to improve or to adapt, or to, I don't know how to call it at this point, but the adapting will be gradual, and we will keep working on that. But I think that it's again, a combination of responses.
Right. Thank you, Esteban. Mark, from your perspective of global policy and heat risk governance, I would like to invite your thoughts on this question, please.
Well, I mean, beyond the immediate measures that need to be taken for the next heat season, and bearing in mind that we are likely to see these just simply get hotter and hotter, I think Esteban and Juan have touched upon many. You could add cooling shelters potentially to that to be able to deal with the realized heat risk. But I think we hopefully will be able to leave this session and this conference with the understanding that unless we start to get into the systems that are creating heat risk in the first place in the short, medium, and long term, we are going to be still more quickly overwhelmed by extreme heat. And so if there was a single investment in that respect that I would recommend, it would be to support decision makers in municipal and city authorities to be able to establish the intersectoral, multidimensional, and multi-temporal coordinating mechanisms that can help understand how heat risk is created or reduced and prevented, so that can inform the policy, the regulatory, and the legislative environment that enables heat risk informed investment, public investment, and allows the possibility to crowd in private capital at scale that can address some of these market failures, that can address some of these systems dysfunctionalities, de-risk investment portfolios, and create incentives for true heat action, for heat resilience at scale by stimulating markets.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, thank you to all the three of our panelists for sharing your valuable insights. Today's discussion has reminded us that the decisions we make today, how we plan, invest, and govern our cities will determine how well our communities withstand the heat challenges of tomorrow. With that, it is now my pleasure to hand back to Ricardo to continue with the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashwina, to you.